One of the most important parts in games now, especially in Tears of the Kingdom, are the many collectibles that you can find throughout the world. Korok Seeds, Bubbul Gems, Poes, there are just so many different kinds of collectibles throughout this game. Whether or not these collectibles should actually be in Tears of the Kingdom is an important question to ask because there are just so many collectibles in this game. We're going to be going through each important collectible and talking about them, discussing whether or not they're actually beneficial to the game or if they should cease to exist entirely. There are a lot of collectibles in this game, so it's hard to decide where to start, but let's begin by talking about the most prominent collectible in the game, Korok Seeds. Although Korok Seeds aren't the most important collectible in the game, they are pretty important in order to become stronger. Korok Seeds are used to increase your inventory space in your weapon, bow, and shield slots, which I would say are some of the most important inventory slots in the game. What's strange to me is that despite there being 1,000 Korok Seeds in the game, only 421 of them can be used in order to improve your inventory space. Every Korok Seed after the 421st is basically useless until you get all of them, which just rewards you with a less than favorable item. I think a lot of people were upset by the fact that the reward for grinding 1,000 Korok Seeds is completely useless, but I don't actually think this is a bad thing. If the reward for 1,000 Korok Seeds was actually good, or at the very least cool, it would cause people to feel like they're missing out if they don't grind these 1,000 Korok Seeds. The problem with them doing this would be that even more people would end up grinding for the sake of getting a cool item, and they would end up hating the game in the process. Even people who do all of the Korok Seeds for the sake of 100%ing the game end up complaining about it being the most tedious aspect of Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know if I would necessarily call the Hestu's gift item funny, but I do think that this is a good thing that the player gets a useless item for doing 1,000 Koroks. If anything, I would go as far to say that this is just the developers trolling people who thought it would be a good idea to go for all of the Koroks, which is pretty fair in my eyes. It's also important to mention that Hestu is the best character in Tears of the Kingdom, so let's not be ungrateful when he gives us a present. The most commonly asked question is if there's really a need for a whole 1,000 Korok Seeds in Tears of the Kingdom, and the answer would be no. But also, yes. I think the reason for such a lackluster gift after getting 1,000 Korok Seeds is because the developers for Tears of the Kingdom didn't want people to hunt for every Korok. Despite the complaints about 900 Korok Seeds in Breath of the Wild, the Tears of the Kingdom developers decided to add 1,000 entirely new Koroks into the game. I think the reason they did this is so that casual players would be able to find Korok Seeds without even looking for them, since there's such a large amount spread throughout the world, not so people can hunt for all 1,000 of them. Let's go back in time and talk about Ocarina of Time for a second. The collectible in Ocarina of Time is the Golden Skulltula, which there are 100 of throughout the world. The Golden Skulltulas are basically the Ocarina of Time equivalent of Korok Seeds, and the reason there are 100 of them is so that people can find them all throughout the small world of Ocarina of Time. The world in Tears of the Kingdom is a much larger one than Ocarina of Time, so it makes sense for them to have over 1,000 of these kind of collectibles rather than 100. While I think it's fine that there are 1,000 Korok Seeds, I do still think that Tears of the Kingdom could have done a little bit more to help players who wanted to collect them all. A small addition like a Korok map as a reward for 100 Korok Seeds could make searching for Koroks way easier and less boring. Most people find all of the Korok Seeds by using a guide or a map online because the odds of being able to actually find all of them on your own are slightly low. I understand that Nintendo didn't want to encourage people to hunt for all of the Korok Seeds, but a Korok map would be such a small addition to the game, and it would be really helpful for people trying to find all of the Koroks. I actually think that Korok Seeds are a nice addition to the game. They're completely optional, so I don't see any point in complaining about how many there are, and I've honestly been enjoying my time trying to collect all of them. People seem to have more negative opinions on the Korok Seeds where you have to bring a Korok to his friend, but I've honestly enjoyed those, so I can't really complain about those ones either. I seriously can't wait until I reach 600 Korok Seeds. I'm sure I'll achieve happiness after that. Before we talk about the next collectible, I think it's time to direct your attention to subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Anyway, another one of the more prominent collectibles in Tears of the Kingdom is the Bubbul Gems, found by killing bubble frogs inside of the caves. The Bubbul Gems function in a similar way to Korok Seeds. You collect a bunch of them and then trade them to Colton in return for some kind of reward. There are over 140 Bubbul Gems, which may not sound like a lot, but considering how hard it is to find every cave in the game, this is a lot. I actually enjoy some of the rewards you get for the Bubbul Gems quite a bit. Yeah, there are a lot of useless ones like the weird mystic outfit or the random monster parts, but the monster masks are always appreciated. Similar to Korok Seeds, you don't really get a favorable reward after finding all of the Bubbul Gems. After giving Colton all of the Bubbul Gems, he transforms into a bloopy and disappears, and while I can enjoy watching Colton vanish never to be seen again, it isn't exactly what I would expect to get after obtaining every Bubbul Gem. This is a little disappointing, but at the same time, the same thing I said for Korok Seeds can be said for the Bubbul Gems in this regard. Nintendo probably just didn't want people to get every Bubbul Gem, which is pretty fair. In terms of how fun the Bubbul Gems are to actually collect, well, they aren't great. Stopping by a cave and searching to find the bubble frog isn't usually that fun, and although some of the rewards are cool, they aren't nearly as good as the rewards you get for getting the first 400 Korok Seeds. I also really wish the Mon system came back, because I honestly really miss it, and thought that this was a pretty strange replacement. The one good thing I can say about Bubbul Gems is that I appreciate that they serve as markers for which caves you have and haven't explored. In case you didn't know this by now, every time you get a Bubbul Gem from a cave, the game marks that cave on the map so that you can know that you've already explored it, which is a pretty cool addition to the game. Bubbul Gems don't necessarily harm the game, but I don't really think the game would be negatively impacted if they didn't exist. There are multiple collectibles that you can find in the depths, so I'm going to put them all as one segment and briefly go over each one, starting with Lightroots. Whether or not the Lightroots are really a collectible is a gray area, but I want to talk about them anyway, so you know, my video, my rules. Lightroots are probably the most essential collectibles in the game, since without them you would need to constantly throw Bright Bloom seeds out around the depths, and that would just be pretty tedious. Lightroots are also some of my favorite collectibles in the game because I think the impact they have is great. Although they aren't necessary, I think that being able to light up the depths feels satisfying in a way that getting the other collectibles doesn't. On paper, the reward for getting all of the Lightroots is this random medal that nobody cares about, but the real reward is having the entire depths be lit up without having to throw Bright Bloom seeds around, and that's a pretty nice reward. Some Lightroots are easier than others, and I thought that getting to the more challenging ones was fun, while getting to the easier ones was still satisfying. Another collectible inside of the depths is the Poes, which are a lot less tedious to collect when compared to the other collectibles in Tears of the Kingdom. Most collectibles in Tears of the Kingdom rely on finding little secrets, while Poes are out in the open and can be collected with ease. I also really like the rewards that you can get for collecting Poes from the Bargainer's statues, and as a whole, I think Poes are a great collectible. Crystalized charges are a more contestable collectible in Tears of the Kingdom. Crystalized charges are what the player can use to increase their energy cell capacity, which sounds great, but I don't know if energy cells are a great idea in the first place. Like, why limit how long the player can use their cool creations at the beginning of the game instead of giving them a larger battery from the start? I get that it's meant to give the player a sense of progress, but grinding for crystallized charges in order to use cool inventions feels kind of tedious. Now, we've been talking so far about all of the playground level collectibles that nobody really cares about, and it's time to move on to the best collectibles in the entire game, Paraglider skins. The best part about the Paraglider skins is that there are over 50 of them, and yet they're all completely different. The problem with collectibles like Koroks is that they tend to repeat the same kind of puzzles and designs over and over with the same small reward each time, but with Paraglider skins, you're always getting something new. In terms of design, the Paraglider skins can be pretty hit or miss. Some Paraglider skins like the Yiga Clan and Horse Fabrics are absolutely beautiful, while other Paraglider skins like the Hudson Construction Fabric probably shouldn't exist. Although there are some terrible designs, I would say that the Paraglider fabrics are generally pretty good, and I wouldn't mind using most of them. Some fabrics are simpler to obtain than others. The nostalgic fabric can be obtained by finding a cool chest in the Temple of Time, and the Zora fabric, well, you have to use a raft and bring a rock to a random person across a giant river. This is what I like about the Paraglider Fabrics. You can use all types of different looking paraglider skins in all kinds of different ways, and it always feels satisfying to get a new one. I've been using the horse paraglider skin for a while now, but I might change it up soon for the sake of it, because well, why not? There are a lot of paraglider skins that you can only get with the amiibos, but I would be lying to you if I said that this annoyed me. Sure, a lot of the best paraglider fabrics come from these amiibos, but they give you well over enough great paraglider skins in the base game for it to be worth complaining. As a whole, I just love the paraglider fabrics, and they're definitely my favorite small addition to Tears of the Kingdom. Yes, there are a lot of collectibles in Tears of the Kingdom, but they're pretty much all optional, and I would say that most of them are a good addition to the game, especially the Paraglider Fabrics and the Koroks. There are more collectibles in Tears of the Kingdom that I haven't talked about in this video yet, like the Sage's Wills, but let's be honest, who cares about the Sage's Wills?